12:34 on TSN 690. It is Game Points. I am your host, Matthew Ross. Mo Khan is here. Stefano Micella is here. Marco Polo is here. We're back on Sunday. GamePointsRadio.com is our blog if you want to check out audio from this show. Let's get to our next guest. He's become a regular on Tuesday nights, and people like it. You can check him out on FantasySportsNetwork.com, where he hosts a weekday show at 3 p.m. Also, check out MMA Meltdown on the Fight Network, and SportsRageTV.com is his website, and SportsRage on Twitter. It is Gabriel Morency. How you doing?
Hey, what's going on, Matt? Sounds like you got a lot of people in that studio. It sounds like they. I'm going to go out on a limb and sounds like Marcello's an Italian name, so I'm sure there's a lot of unhappy campers.
Yeah,
Marco Polo in Montreal tonight. A lot of Italians in Montreal. I know.
They were just talking about some biting. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, Suarez just actually breaking news just in the last couple of minutes. Suarez has officially been charged with biting from FIFA. I guess he faces a maximum 2-year ban, but now I'd like to see FIFA charge the officials for biting, a different type of biting. But the officials have bit in this tournament as well. But what a wild World Cup, man! I can't really. I was talking about this the other night, and I think I go back to about 1982 with the World Cups, and this is definitely the craziest World Cup in my lifetime. And think about it, we're not even into the knockout stage yet, in which the way things are going, that stuff's going to come down to penalty kicks, and a lot of crazy stuff's going to be happening in the next 2 weeks still.
All right. Well, I wanted to get to your take on a whole bunch of different stuff, but one thing just on this biting thing, Stefano, you were reading one of Gabriel's tweets today.
Yeah, Gabriel, apparently you tweeted that a Norwegian actually bet on the fact that Suarez would bite somebody.
Yeah, it's pretty crazy, actually. I thought I bet on everything, man. I'm betting on total yellow cards and corners and stuff. And I think the craziest thing I've been betting on in this tournament is how long will extra time be in the first half and in the game. I sort of calculate, by the countries and whether they flop or not, or whether they're going to fake injuries, etc. And I've been doing pretty well with it. But, yeah, that's right. So the North American books didn't offer this, but it's a big world. We often think that, the world revolves around us, but there's other sports books. And somebody in Norway actually won. They only won about $5,700. So it's not like they won $500,000 or anything like that. But, yeah, it was actually a prop. Will Suarez bite anybody? And it was 175 to 1.
That's my favorite part, is that it was only 175 to 1.
Yeah, really. I guess I didn't realize that this guy was such a biter, so to speak. And I should have known. I saw Marv Albert wearing a Suarez jersey the other day.
Oh, there you go. Yeah.
Honestly, I was unaware that this guy was only 175 to 1 to bite somebody. It's pretty crazy. And then, lo and behold, he bites somebody.
Gabriel, when we look at Luis Suarez even more in depth here, he plays his club football with Liverpool. Do you think he'll be welcomed back with open arms in the UK after these 2 games with him beating England by himself and now this biting incident against Italy?
Well, that's a good question. And I don't know how the rule works, but so what? He'd only be suspended by an international play? Because that would seem kind of crazy if you could do something insane in the World Cup and it only really counts in international play. I don't know. I know they were already. I know there's a history of that when guys score on the country and they play in the country. I know in Italy have gotten rid of players because of that in the past. But it'll be interesting to see how it plays out if he actually really does get 2 years. But one thing I want to note, though, actually is let's not let this sort of, and it has overshadowed the fact that, and I know I'm going to enrage a lot of people in Montreal right now, but the fact that Italy just sucked, in this tournament. Let's call it out for what it is. They just sucked. I know that they got screwed over. And there's always going to be the excuses. Listen, I'm a gambling man. I've got a lot of excuses in my book as well. But the fact of the matter is, and they weren't alone. you look at UEFA, big bad UEFA, and the European powerhouses that are always looking down their noses at the rest of the world when it comes to football/soccer, and they've all gotten their ass handed to them. I mean, England, that's pathetic. How can a country that loves this sport as much as they do, that's like Canada, getting bounced all the time in the Olympics or something, like in hockey. It's baffling to me, man. I guess because their league, they just spend money on international guys all the time. But they're just chokers. I don't even think I think they're great soccer players. I think they got great skill. They got some great young players on England, but I just think they're chokers. And they choke. Spain were kind of old. Portugal are a one-man team. You go down the list, and Europe is pretty much embarrassed themselves. You've got Germany and you got Holland, but I like to see CONCACAF doing as well as they are. That's pretty cool.
All right, elsewhere, the NHL awards were tonight. We were just talking about this in studio. It's not really of interest to us here, but the guys in the studio here. But we were curious. Did you bet on any of the awards?
No. I didn't bet on any of the awards. And to be honest, I've been doing this stuff for 13 years now, and I've only gotten one CRTC complaint. People often think that I've got a lot, and Morency's crazy on the air, etc. But it takes, I don't drop anything racial, and really when you think about it, there's not a whole hell of a lot to complain about. But I got one CRTC complaint in 13 years when I was on the Score Television Network, because it was the NHL awards, and somebody called in and asked me about it a couple hours before when I was taking calls on national television, and I said that I would rather perform oral sex on Rosie O'Donnell than watch the NHL award show. Now, for the record, Rosie looks a little better now, a couple of years later, than she did then. But I'll stand by what I stated. And to be honest, even though there was a complaint, the complaint didn't stand, actually, because there's nothing really offensive about it, unless, I guess, you're a Rosie O'Donnell fan.
Maybe. I don't know. That's an interesting one. NBA news. Obviously, the LeBron James agent saying that he will indeed declare as a free agent and not come back for the moment. Do you think he stays, though, in Miami in the end?
Yes. I've been saying this all along. Kyle Lowry is going to sign. I think Kyle Lowry will end up signing with the Heat, or they'll try to pull off Carmelo Anthony. I don't really know what Carmelo, Carmelo helps them, but they still need a point guard anyways. So it'll be interesting. Everything's wide open right now. But if the Heat were actually going to get better, he had to tear up his contract. So this is a step in the right direction. And I got to believe that he has a little loyalty, not a lot, but just a little smidge, in the sense that he already lives in Miami. If they could get a couple of players to come to Miami, I think that he'll stay. If things aren't looking good, and he gets a good offer and he can play in Los Angeles or maybe Houston, maybe he bolts. I know people in Cleveland. I had a guy on from Cleveland today on my show, and I know people in Cleveland actually legitimately believe there's a chance he's going to go back there, but I don't think so. I think he'll play somewhere else, or he'll stay in Miami for another 4 or 5 year chunk here, and then he'll go to Cleveland and wrap it up. But I don't think he goes back to Cleveland yet.
Gabriel, when you look at the NBA draft, Andrew Wiggins potentially going number 1, what type of global impact will he have? Do you think he'll live up to expectations that have been bestowed on him for the last 18 months?
Well, he hasn't lived up to the expectations yet. I know everybody in Canada is scared to say anything negative, and he's a good kid. I got nothing against him. He seems like a really nice guy. I know people that know him a bit, and they say he's actually cool, he's down to earth, he's humble, etc. But at the same point in time, we sort of anointed him to be better than he is. He's good. Yeah, I think he'll be an NBA star though, Mo. Like, he'll be dunking, and Dwight Walton said it best, man. And he called this out. I remember during early in the college season when he compared him to Tracy McGrady. The kid's got skill and stuff, but he doesn't seem to be a take over the game type of guy. You know what I'm saying? Like, he hit a couple of threes. He got streaky a couple of times. And ironically, when he scored 35-plus points in those games for Kansas, his team ended up losing the games. And we saw in the NCAA tournament, he disappeared. Like, he wasn't looking for shots. He's got to get more mentally aggressive. I know a lot of scouts, that's sort of the slight worry about him. How intense is he? He's a hell of an athlete. We know he can play basketball. But how intense is he? Does he have that desire to really drive a team to win, or is he just sort of going to be there? You know, there's a hell of a lot of good players in this NBA draft. Normally the draft is like the NHL awards. You know, it's like judges and how many throw-ins there's going to be, or they got a ref and they need a bunch of yellow cards. I don't think the actual games are fixed. So like, Ghana, didn't try to win. Ghana tried to win, but I think the referees are the ones that are screwing around. And there's so many props you can bet on, guys, in soccer. No one's going to freaking notice. People wouldn't even understand if I tried to explain to them how this works, let alone, it flies under the radar. It happens in boxing all the time with Floyd Mayweather fights. It's not an accident. Floyd Mayweather dominates against Canelo Alvarez. He dominated. It was, 117, 112, whatever the hell it was. Like, it was across the board, but one of the judges had it as a draw. And nobody cares because the headline doesn't say, judge screws up and calls it a draw, but Floyd wins. The headline just says Floyd wins. So ESPN and the mainstream media, they're not going to start crying about it because one judge didn't agree with the other two judges. But meanwhile, you can bet big money on that prop. Is it going to be a unanimous decision or not? And if you got one of the judges that'll say no matter what happens in a fight, it's not going to be a unanimous decision, you're going to make money, and nobody's going to know the wiser for it. Nobody's going to bitch. Nobody's going to care because Floyd won the fight, and Floyd won the fight. So nobody feels ripped off about this, But trust me, guys, to think that this isn't going on is like believing that there's no crime going on right now. Like crime exists, and so does match fixing. But it's not so much, teams trying to lose. There's just little side bets and angles in this stuff.
FantasySportsNetwork.com is the website. Check them out on weekday afternoon. SportsRageTV.com, Sports Rage on Twitter, and, of course, MMA Meltdown on the Fight Network. I promise next week to ask you an MMA question or two.
Yeah, it's a quiet week this week, actually. There's not a whole hell of a lot going on. Rory McDonald, who trains in Montreal, had a great performance, but it was kind of a crappy, boring card in Vancouver the other night. But, so on the Saturday the 28th, there's a doubleheader, so we can definitely break it down next week.
All right, thanks so much.
Hey, always a pleasure, guys.
All right, there you go. That's Gabriel Morency. One more segment to come here on Game Points. We'll bring in Andrew Buckles from the 55-yard line on Yahoo Sports to talk some CFL. That's next.
Whatever. There's a lot of European dudes and